a lot of you are probably asking, what is cell danger response? Infections, toxins, chemicals, psychological trauma, physical trauma, all those things can put your cells into this preservation mode. If things aren't working right, or you're in cell danger response, those mitochondria are just not functioning the way they need to. There's some really good, effective ways to look at how we can boost the mitochondria, get around the cell danger response from any of these different triggers. Welcome all you beautiful people. This is Cade Archibald, and I am the host tonight. Welcome to Health Accelerator Challenges, and really excited to dive in. You guys we're going to be covering some really intriguing topics today. We're back on our 7-week Health Accelerator Challenge, the 7 ageless catalysts for unlocking your body's operating system. And so going back last week, we had Lena Eskin on with Avery Lemler. We even had some guest appearances. Just had an amazing show last week. So thanks to all of you that participated and played all out. Really, really appreciate you guys being there for that. And then this week, the week prior was our week 5. And so just want to touch base on the challenge for week 5, because this week we're going into week 6, but the challenge was no preservatives. We talked a lot about digestive health. Essentially, it was gut health was the week 6 topics. Talked about LL37, lorazepam, some really cool peptides that we covered there. And so this week, what we're going to be jumping into and diving into is the cell danger response. So cell danger response is really, really critical and new concept and new to some. But yeah, it's like the hidden cell prison. Your cells just, they feel like this guy looks, just beat down and not performing super well. And so, a lot of you are probably asking, what is cell danger response? And so cell danger response is when cells, they detect threats. So, any infections, stressors, and this is where, like, if someone has leaky gut and there's lots of proteins getting into the bloodstream, that's activating your immune system. That can be some of the threats that are being detected. And so, infections, toxins, chemicals, psychological trauma, physical trauma, all those things can put your cells into this preservation mode. So imagine a car that kind of slows down to avoid a crash. These cells they get a little bit hesitant, or they're just not fully fully operating because they're kind of hesitating or cautious. So this was CDR was developed by Dr. Robert Navox and his research team at the University of California, San Diego. And the model focuses on how cells respond to threats rather than targeting pathogens directly, which has transformed our understanding of chronic illness and treatment. And so what we're seeing more and more is a lot of these chronic mystery illnesses, these different diseases, they're triggered the stressors trigger the cell danger response is really causing a lot of these downstream diseases and effects. And so, and so it's really fascinating. Number one thing here is your mitochondria. And so, essentially the role of the mitochondria, that's like the powerhouse of the cell. Imagine it's, you got these like little batteries that just keep this cell moving, functioning. And so, if you think about the batteries in a remote control, if you don't have them, the remote just won't function. Or if you don't have batteries in whatever toy or thing that you're using, it just kind of sits there dormant, right? It can't fully move. Or let's say if your mitochondria, if you're in this cell danger response place, they're going to be moving very slow. They're not energized. So beyond the energy production of what mitochondria create, they also sense different changes in the environment. Then they communicate that information to other cell structures. And so, they're like the smoke detectors that's kind of sending out the signals to the body if there's potential danger. So that mitochondria, they're these sensors as well as this battery or powerhouse of the cell. And so if things aren't working right, or you're in cell danger response, those mitochondria are just not functioning the way they need to. And so that can be something that's very critical. There's some really good, effective ways to look at how we can boost the mitochondria, get around the cell danger response from any of these different triggers. Even someone having a cold, getting sick, and it just feels like it drags on for months and months. A lot of times that's because these cells get into this kind of latency cell danger response state, and they haven't got that energy factor back up. And so this is where really identifying this. So looking at pathogenesis versus salutogenesis. So, first step is let's focus on what the cause is. So that's what pathogenesis is. And so we can focus on what's creating and causing this disease, or what's causing the cell danger response. And typically cell danger response is really what is causing most of these diseases. So if we can, we really have to fuel that mitochondria and fuel those cells, get rid of those toxins so that we can get back. And that would essentially be the salutogenesis, which is that's focusing on the healing process necessary for the recovery of these chronic illnesses. Pathogenesis is like the diagnosing piece. So if you got, if water's coming down in your basement and you finally figure out, oh, we have a leaky roof. Here's the hole. And then salutogenesis is repairing that roof and actually, fixing the problem and the root cause. So hopefully we don't have any future leaks. And then, we go through these stages. So in the healing process, it really evolves, but typically the first stage in a healing experience is inflammation. And so, a lot of us look at inflammation as bad, and inflammation is not great. Like, if you're chronically inflamed, that means something's wrong and we got to dial that down. But ultimately in that healing process, that's typically what we see first is there's damage to a tissue, or there's the stress response, and our body's initial reaction is all right, let's create some inflammation so we can send all of its soldiers and cells there, and then it turns into proliferation. And so that's where our body's own stem cell mechanisms, healing mechanisms start to proliferate and actually work on healing. And then from there, there's differentiation. It's like a plant growing from a seed to sprouting to proliferation and then blooming into this brand new thing. And so when we're looking and talking about kind of this chronic illness and incomplete healing, so and the definition here on chronic disease, it's when the healing process is interrupted, often resulting from multiple stressors over time. And, essentially you just stay in this disease state or this unwell state for months and months, could be years and years. So these are all different factors that you want to be able to look at and identify when you're looking at your health, because really what we're discovering is that underlying cause of chronic fatigue, metabolic syndrome, all these different conditions really can be cycled down to that cell danger response and how those cells are responding, and then our mitochondria not actually diving in. And so when we do have these different diseases pop up or different illnesses, and we don't actually fully heal that process, those can kind of hang out dormant. Maybe there's no symptoms, and then all of a sudden there's a stress. There's you breathe in the wrong chemicals, you get exposed to a certain mold or different things, and that brings all those same things back to life. Essentially it triggers that process. So there's environmental factors that do this. So increased exposure to environmental toxins over the last 50 years contributes to a huge increase in chronic illness. And this is one thing, I don't know if you follow the political landscape. We're pretty excited to have RFK, as on the health train. I think he's going to help in a lot of ways, because he's definitely looking at some of these environmental triggers that are causing issues, as well as pollution in the rivers and different things in our ecosystem. But then also we look at the chemicals that are in our foods. So you look at glyphosate and the different pesticides and what we're allowing in the United States. We allow crazy chemicals into our foods, versus there's a lot of other countries that don't allow that, and they don't have the same health problems and health conditions that we do. And so I'm pretty excited about that, because I think that's going to be something that'll be very, very helpful and beneficial, regardless of what political affiliation you have. I think everyone should be excited about that being scrutinized a little more tightly. Make America healthy again. Thanks, Dale. Love it. So along with that, so if we look at some of those environmental factors, so these are all the different causes. So if we think about, pollutions, toxins, different stressors that come into us, and then let's talk about some of the healing stages. So when it comes to your mitochondria, they go from different stages, from a damaged state back to health. So obviously you have to go through some rehabilitation and create the right healing process. Because a lot of times, sometimes after an initial injury, or let's take our bodies, for example, if we're talking more chronically, if we get exposed to a virus, we've had a lot of patients that we've talked to that have had, they had COVID, 6 months ago, years ago, and they're still dealing with some of the side effects and negative things from that. And really, what we're seeing is the recovery process just never fully happened. And it's the kind of the definition there would be as in it doesn't resolve itself within 6 months. And it's like getting into a car accident. There's some dents and maybe alignments off. Your car is just not going to perform super well if you don't get those things fully resolved. And so, we look at that. And a lot of these chronic illnesses stem from multiple hits, such as you get this infection, and then that kind of goes away, and then we're constantly being bombarded by these different environmental exposures. But maybe it's you go into a warehouse and there's some different chemicals that you breathe in, not even knowing it, or sometimes those chemicals can be super strong, and it can you're aware of it. Other times you're not, and so those little things can just stack up. So it's just like stacking up those dominoes, and then finally, after you've kind of hit so many different places, that last little bit just it triggers that, and cascading effect is your health just decelerates significantly. And so this is where keeping your mitochondria really charged, moving, like, and really like following our 6 essential habits helps kind of avoid that. But then also you want to have a good recovery process. And this is a good process that you can actually follow even if you feel like you're super health resilient. You feel like, hey, I'm just brushing things right now. This is something that on a quarterly or biannually, or at minimum once a year, I would probably say minimum 6 months, but you can do some things to help enhance your liver detoxification, because you gotta essentially we gotta open up those pathways so we can get some of that junk out of there, because we're always going to be getting exposed to different chemicals, different toxins, the air we breathe, the water we drink. I don't like, I even look at my Stanley, it's got a plastic straw. You can't get away from all these different things. Yeah, I could probably get a better straw, but I haven't. Sorry. And so, you look at all these different things. So let's stack the odds in our favor. And so here's some stages of recovery that you can go through to really, reverse that cell danger response. And even if maybe you don't think you have cell danger response, this is still a really good productive activity to go through every 3, 6, 9 months. So liver detoxification is kind of stage 1. We have this cranberry juice drink. It's a cranberry drink. You make sure it's unsweetened. You do an ounce of cranberry, 1 to 2, like a tablespoon of lemon juice, half tablespoon of lemon juice, and then a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And then you can fill it up with water. Whatever dilution you want, because that cranberry and lemon, it can be pretty tart, as well as the apple cider vinegar. But, I just put a little bit of water. It's kind of like, 2 parts, all that stuff. And then I'll match it with water and drink that 3 times a day. That's going to help support your liver, improve that detoxification. It's also going to, it can help with acne things. It's really going to help your liver clear excess estrogen and different toxins. So clear skin, feel better. Some different supplementation that someone can do with this and that liver detoxification: glutathione recycler or N-acetylcysteine, NAC. You want to do that 1 to 2 times a day. You want to boost your glutathione production in the liver, supporting that detox function, and essentially it's also going to improve skin. And you're once again you're opening up those detox pathways. You can utilize liver DTX. That's evergreen Chinese herb that we utilize. So you're taking 3 caps 3 times or 2 different times a day, or 3. You can take it up to 3 times, morning, afternoon, evening, but that's a natural liver tonic that can be used to enhance detox pathways. Also reduces that acne causing inflammation. So you're going to have clear skin there. And then lastly, you can do some extra virgin olive oil, 1 to 2 ounces before bed. And so that can help with decreasing the accumulation of triglycerides in the liver, reduces fatty liver or liver fat. It's also, overall improvement in your liver health, enhances that ability to eliminate excess estrogens. And then that next stage, so stage 2 would be, let's balance those hormones. So you can use DIM, is something that will help with balancing your hormones, supports estrogen metabolism. So you can utilize that estrogen. Estrogen's a good thing, but if it gets held up in our fat cells and it's accumulating too much, that can be very detrimental, super toxic, and long-term create other downstream issues. That's why, cancer concerns and things like that, if your estrogen levels are getting out of control. Helps regulate hormone balance, reduce breakout linked to the high estradiol. Zinc, take some zinc, supports healthy skin, reduces that inflammation, helps balance androgens and that may contribute to acne as well. And then calcium D-glucuronidase. So this you want to take, 3 caps twice a day. And then this is converted into it inhibits your beta glucuronidase. So that's an enzyme that kind of dejunctivates your estrogen in the intestine. So by inhibiting that enzyme, you're helping prevent estrogen from being reabsorbed into the body, allowing it to eliminate from the body more effectively. So essentially that calcium D glucuronidase helping with just getting rid of that estrogen through the digestive tract as well. Supports and then it's going to help with that phase 2 liver detoxification, opening up that pathway. It also helps package that estrogen and other hormones so they can get eliminated, whether that's through your digestive tract or your urinary tract. So another really important piece with getting those hormones balanced when we're looking at the different phases of cell danger recovery. Lastly is have some dietary and lifestyle adjustments. So we utilize elimination diet and a lot of things. So there's your gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and then refined sugars. The other thing, and there's just so much more and more literature and research coming out on this, but those plant seed oils, your sesame, your vegetable oils, all those refined oils, they can trigger obviously like acne. They're gonna create a whole host of problems. And what's crazy is it takes a really long time for our bodies to get rid of that stuff. And this is another thing that I really like RFK's stance on. You look at how fast food is frying their food. You go back 50 years ago and they used a lot more like pure animal fats as opposed to these crazy wild plant fats that are very highly refined and super toxic. And they You've kind of coined it, having a French fry is similar to smoking a cigarette when it's been deep fried in all these seed oils, because the long-term effects are so carcinogenic. And so, these are things that, really want to pay attention to. Is, even if you're at a restaurant, this could be extreme. I don't necessarily think it is, but just even asking them what oils they're cooking their food with. And ideally they're cooking it just in water and it's steamed, and then they're putting their oils on after that. And that would be like olive oil, coconut oil, like even butter, like butter from grass-fed cows, much better. But if they're deep frying it in seed oils, vegetable oils, corn oils, it's going to create a lot more inflammatory response, and you're going to be triggering those cells that then will start to go into their cell danger response. The other thing with this kind of stage 3 is animal protein fast for 14 days. So animal protein, like, great. I am absolutely a big proponent of animal protein, love it to death. But it does, excess protein, especially as we encourage you to eat so much protein, can put a little extra burden on the liver. And so just taking even a 1 week to 2 weeks, so 14-day animal protein fast, reduce that liver burden by limiting that animal protein intake. This decreases the workload on the liver. It's responsible for processing and metabolizing proteins, allows your liver to focus on other functions. Really, a big one of that is the hormone metabolism. So that's gonna be great. And then you could get, like, say 50 grams per day maximum. So you can still do some animal protein, but just dial it down. Don't be doing, for me, I'm trying to push 160, 170 grams of protein so I can keep my muscle mass up. And sometimes that's a challenge to get that many grams of protein. And then lastly, this one's a really fun one. I'm not saying everyone has to do this, but especially if you're looking for a full-blown detoxification, coffee enema. That's a crowd pleaser for sure. But you can do that. Make sure if you're going to test this one out, it is super helpful if you have like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or if you have any kind of digestive infections going on, or lower intestine infections. This can be super helpful in that just overall cleansing. It's a great detox. But essentially, and you can find, there's unfortunately, there's lots of YouTube videos on how you can do this, or you can reach out to our team. We can work with you if you really need some assistance. But just make sure you stay hydrated, because it can be very dehydrating. So make sure you're staying hydrated before bed. You'll do this on an empty stomach, and make sure you're really staying hydrated before and after, because you're going to lose some fluids with that. But the coffee enemas can be great addition to your detox protocol. All right. So besides everyone I know everyone's like, yes, I'm signing up for that. I'm doing a coffee enema tomorrow. Add mushrooms for rocket fuel. I like that. Thanks, Dale. But that can be great. So the challenge this week, which we've done, eliminate processed foods. This week, we're going to get rid of the negative, the bad vegetable oils. So we're going to have you eliminate dairy and plant and seed oils and those refined sugars. So kind of everything there in that gray area: canola oil, corn oil, grape seed, cottonseed, rice and bran oil, safflower, sunflower, soybean oil. Those are super toxic. They're very estrogenic. Interesting story I'll share with you guys before we wrap up. Just regarding soy. Soy can be, very estrogenic. When I first got married, my wife and I loved edamame, and so we'd get the little frozen packs, stick them in the microwave, and you can, eat those with some salt on them, and they're pretty tasty little snack. A lot of restaurant, like you go to, some of the Asian restaurants, and you can get the edamame as an appetizer. I still do have those occasionally. It's definitely not a staple, but essentially what happened is my wife stopped having her cycle. Like she didn't have a period for 2 or 3 months. And it was crazy. We're like doing pregnancy tests, trying to figure out what was going on. And I reached out to Reagan as I do with most health complications in my life. And I was like, hey, is there anything you can think of that could be happening? He's like, well, is she having a lot of soy? It's like, I don't know. We do edamame, and it was probably a little more than what we should have, but essentially we stopped that and her cycle started back up and she was, just fine. Luckily, we didn't do that for a really long time because I believe that could have really fully created some long-term problems, but it's crazy. Like just, like soybeans could stop a period. And so, those estrogen blockers or not blockers, but, they cause our body to hold on to estrogen more. And so just be aware of what we're putting in our bodies this week. So we're going to be prepping for that detox. So we're going to eliminate those plant seed oils, refined sugars, dairies, gluten's the other thing to consider there as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's Health Accelerator Challenge. And look forward to seeing you guys next week. Reagan will be back next week. So looking forward to that. You guys have an amazing night. We'll see everybody next time. Bye-bye.